friends. It's John. I wanted to have a little intro for this episode. I took some time and I was very grateful to speak with the lovely Stephenie Sofield, a person I met several years ago through my time in the indoor scene. We've both gone on to some different things, and she's a very dedicated and knowledgeable music therapist, currently studying and working over in the New Jersey area on the East Coast. So very thankful for her time, and there's a few interesting things that we talked about that I think maybe not everybody knows, or maybe if people are aware of them, it's not something they think about a lot. But we talk about advocacy and obviously the benefits we sort of take as an already known thing, the benefits of music therapy and music in general. So that's sort of we imply that, but we talk a little bit about the practical side of things, how to help, where to help, what to do, and a few things not to do, which is good because it's not something a lot of people think about. But as the field of music therapy becomes a little bit more, I don't want to say legitimized, it's always been legitimate, but once it's a little bit more, mainstream is the best way to think of it. We talk about how things are changing, and a lot of things are changing for the better. I was very, very excited and very pleased with some of the things that she talked about. So, again, this is Stephenie Sofield, a music therapist in the New Jersey area. And thank you for listening. And I will be posting some of the links things that we've talked about there, underneath the accompanying blog post for this episode. So, please enjoy. Thanks. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Let's see then. Moment of truth. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know what I did, but it's working now, so I'm just going to go with it. So, first of all, I do want to thank you for bearing with me, and, I'm very appreciative for this. And I know this is kind of a weird setup, but, it's cool that we can talk this way, even though it takes a little bit of trial and error. But, just want to thank you and welcome you to the podcast.
I'm scared to talk. I'm scared to say anything.
That's okay. It's one of those things where it's more of a conversation, and I don't think it's necessarily we have to try and make it interesting or entertaining. I think just sort of the nature of the subject matter hopefully will be, and the whole goal of the podcast is to sort of raise awareness for a bunch of different stuff and sort of normalize things to where, I've talked to people sometimes and they're like, oh, you're a musician. So what's your real job? I'm like,
That's what I get paid to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's so many different facets of it, and I'll let you sort of introduce yourself here in a little bit, but so you know, and so that it's sort of out there. Like I said, the goal is to raise awareness and normalize and have some detail and some sort of in-depth knowledge and information that's coming from people who are currently doing it. Not someone that understands the theory really well, or back when I was 20 whatever or 30 whatever, I was doing this, but it's some for example, you get up and the things you're going to talk about are the things you do every day. That's part of your job and your life and your being. So that's sort of the goal of it. And it's supposed to be broad and open and, fun that way. So, it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be like a job interview. You don't have to like say your name and where you went to college, but just it's cool if, and we haven't really spoken much before, so maybe like I don't know what you do for work, like how a given day of work will go for you is a good place to start, because there's a lot of other stuff we can get into. But what's every day kind of like for you?
You want me to tell you right now?
Yeah.
Are you recording? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually really lucked out because I am not a morning person, and I work with a population that gets to come to therapy after school. So I work 12 to 8, which means I get to sleep in every day, which is amazing. So yeah, it's great. So I don't work 8 to 5, but I do work 40 hours a week doing music therapy. So I wake up and do whatever I'm going to do in the morning. And because my kids come usually after school, I see school-age children, ages 3 to 17. So I do about 3 to 4 hours of prep and planning and documentation. I do anything, to get ready for them coming in. And then I usually have 3 to 4 hours of actual therapy sessions, whether they're group or individual sessions. Sometimes I have family sessions or family intakes or case management type sessions. And that's literally it. That's my day every day, 40 hours a week.
Well, it's good. One of the things that I think is so fascinating about first of all, any sort of musical endeavor that has the consistency like that, to me is super, super important and very maybe rare is not the word, but maybe it is. Commonplace things are kind of on a gig basis, and I know very little about therapy, and particularly music therapy. It's always interested me, but feel like I've been successful in other ways, and so a lot of this I may say with a certain air of maybe not ignorance, but wanting to know, wanting to learn. So I don't know if there are therapy practices that get that sort of consistency, have a solid client base like that. Is that something that happens a lot?
Yeah, what's really interesting is they kind of told us at the beginning that, well, that's not even true. I heard a lot of inconsistent things. I heard some people say it'd be really hard for us to find consistent work as music therapists, but then I heard other people say this is the most lucrative thing you can do in music besides music producing if you break into it. Mm-hmm. And also, but then there's the side where people say you can't look at it being lucrative, because then are you really trying to be a therapist, or are you trying to make money off people's problems?
Sure.
So I heard a lot of things it would be hard to get a job, it would be easy to get a job, and I think really it is location. So I'm from Texas, and I think a lot of my friends who got maybe their music therapy degrees from Texas found it harder to stay in Texas if they wanted a facility job, working in a hospital, working at a developmental center, working in a school, because people in Texas like to stay in Texas, so they don't give up those jobs. But the North, I feel is always hiring private practices. I got a facility job right out of internship, which I think is rare. So it really has to do with location and what you're looking for. But honestly, I feel all of my friends who are graduating and finishing internships get jobs right away and good, steady jobs. And a couple of my friends like started as part-time, either with private contractors or in facilities, and grew to full-time within a year. So it seems that if you're willing to move, then it's not hard to get full-time doing this.
Sure. Well, that's super cool. And I mean, obviously, if you're looking at something to do to make a living, like, you can't ignore that. You can't help anybody if you're constantly, so to me, it strikes me more of a positive and uplifting thing that, I mean, I think the need has always been there, but now that things have grown in such a way where the needs are able to be met, I think that is what is more, consistent employment, sure. But that's really great. I've seen it help. When I was in school, I graduated a few years ago when I was at Sam Houston. It's quite a solid therapy program there, music therapy program there, and I saw people were like, yeah, I found 2 clients and we're having a lot of fun, and like I've seen people sort of struggle with that, and I'm super happy to hear that. And moving. What I'm hoping is, Texas will sort of come around, in a lot of different ways. But it's good if you can. It's good that you found that. So is your program sort of affiliated with a school district or several school districts in the area, or how does that work?
I work for the Atlantic County Women's Center in Linwood, New Jersey. So basically, we're grant funded, and they are trying to make it so that every county in New Jersey has a PALS program, which is where I fall under. And it is specifically, I'm not sure where the grant money comes from. I feel like maybe I should know that, but I know that. I work with child witnesses of domestic violence, so I'm sure it's an initiative to end domestic violence, probably under the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. I would not be surprised. So someone basically did all of the research to enable people like me to have jobs, and they went and proved that creative arts therapies are necessary for healing traumatized children, and they are providing these services for free to these people. So really, I serve the county, and so we get referred from like DCPMP, which I didn't know what that was when I moved here, because it's a New Jersey thing. It's like CPS in Texas. So it's a Division for Child Permanency and Protection. So we get referrals from them. Sometimes we get referrals from other therapists, like a speech therapist might notice regression in a client and maybe make the correct assumption that there's been some trauma, probably related to domestic violence. Or we get referrals from teachers and school counselors. So I serve, any child in this county. Sometimes we serve families outside of the county if their county doesn't have PALS, and they're able to come to us, or we can go get them. I don't have a specific school district, but a lot of my kids go to the same schools because I serve the county. So.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. It's cool. Well, it's cool that it's a broad thing, because I know that I'm not sure exactly how the school districts or the county things function there. I know in Texas that a school, 5 minutes down the road from one another, schools that close together can be completely different in the way they handle all sorts of stuff, regular education, special education, some even schools within the district. So it's awesome that even whatever the mire is, even it may not be, too disorganized over there, that you're sort of able to function above that. That really is. It's such a cool setup. That's awesome. So with that kind of cool thing you've got going there, do you see it? Is that going to expand anytime soon? Have you heard anything about more people or more money, or is there any talk of that?
Well, we our grant, I think the grants are written differently for every program. So we just I think if we reproportioned our grant, I don't know if that's the right word, but we just moved some of the money around, and we made it so there's only 2 therapists in our PALS program, mostly because we apparently, before I got there, it was really difficult to fill the 3rd position. And I don't know if it was because it's in South Jersey and nobody wants to live here, or I really don't know what the problem was. So now we have 2 therapists, and every program is different. I think half the counties maybe have a PALS program, and they're all run differently. I think most of them have 2 therapists, maybe more. I know every year we're concerned with different things about the grant. I heard a couple years ago they were worried that they were trying to make a PALS program in all of New Jersey, but they were going to have to pull from all the grants. And so basically it would make it so that there would maybe be 1 therapist in each county, but that wouldn't really make sense because there's still the same amount of children to serve. So luckily that didn't happen. So I know, like, I'm sure some of my future efforts are going to be to help convince other counties. I know Camden County doesn't have a PALS program, and I was talking to the director of like the DCP&P in Camden County, and she had never heard of us and was super impressed by the things that we were doing and didn't understand why there wasn't a PALS program in Camden County. And I know they have kind of a high crime rate in that county, and it's only it's outside of Philly, so it's like 1 county over. So I don't know. I really don't know how any of that works. I mean, I don't do anything with the grant, but I would love to see the grant funded for every county, and I feel like that's something that everybody should do everywhere. Like, it just makes sense.
Certainly. Well, this may sound like a relatively obvious question, but well, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. I think. Would you agree with the thought that even though it's getting better, I think just people in, we'll say the States, are unaware of the benefits of music therapy, other types of art therapy, just in general?
Yeah, that's something that we deal with daily. People don't know what we do. I know a lot of professionals get really upset about it, but I kind of view it as, I guess, an advocacy point. If you don't know about it and you're asking me about it, I just assume that means you want to know. So it's really interesting because music therapy has been an official career with a board, like a governing board, since the 50s. Oh. But people didn't. Right. That's usually the reaction. People didn't really know. I really think it's because people know now more because social media. Just people are able to say hey, I'm a music therapist, and look at this viral video of someone reacting to a music therapist, as opposed to just sticking an iPod in, or this is music therapy with a board certified therapist. So I think social media has really helped, but also with the advent of fMRIs and other imaging, medical imaging and stuff like that, we're able to start proving why what we were doing was working, and then the medical community could see, quantifiable facts and proof and data, and they started taking what we were doing so much more seriously, and that really caused a huge boom in jobs and things like that, because we were able to communicate in the same language that medical professionals were communicating with, and then they started taking us a lot more seriously and see the benefit of what we do. But most people have no idea what we do. They think that music therapy might be me creating a playlist or a mixtape for someone and saying have a good day, or playing Beethoven and how do you feel now? So I get it all the time. But yeah, and I know art therapists deal with people thinking if you go buy a coloring book for yourself, you're getting art therapy. So it's something that we all deal with, but I think we're trying really hard to advocate for what we do and for our clients and everything.
Yeah, there's so much that there's so much that goes on. I worked for a time with a group in here in the Woodlands called Let Them Drum, and I think I maybe have briefly mentioned that group, and how a lot of our job, because I obviously have no training in any sort of therapy like that, but I've played drums for a long time, and the way that the founder, Ralph Hicks, who's a tremendous person, and I would love to get him on sometime, and maybe even have you guys interface somehow. He's such a great person for so many different reasons. But he had me on. He was like, hey, this thing can be what it is before we get all the right people in the right places. But he said, what's cool is this allows people who don't have any training, who may not even be aware to the fullest extent that music therapy can help people, even though we're advocates for it and stuff, but it allows us to put a public face to the idea, to help advocate in that way. Sort of, I don't know if there's a stereotype for music therapists as if you guys are nerds or whatever, but it's like, we're the hip, cool drummer face to it, and we're the biggest nerds ever. So I don't, but it works, and just in this area we had, and he started in the Woodlands. They expanded. I helped start the Magnolia chapter. I think now there's a Cypress. There's an Austin. I think maybe even I had to check my the website because he's constantly adding all of this, and I think there's one even in Memphis. So that kind of thing. We're as musicians, I think, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. Musicians who are aware and want to do better, I think, can advocate just as much as somebody who's, a certified therapist. And I think that's one of the things that I was hoping to get out of this, was having that be sort of on the forefront. And I'd love to put some links up if you have some stuff you like to circulate, because one of the things about the podcast is so cool. It's free. It's so free, and everybody can look at and see all of this wonderful information, and hear from people like you who are working so hard. And I try to do as much as I can, but but it's so cool, and I think that. I think advocacy is really important, and with the advent of social media, like you said, the scientists can have their message heard. It's so exciting to me.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So there's so much that we can talk about, and so at any time, if you want to go back and rehash some stuff, we can, but you're certainly a multifaceted person, and I know how busy you are doing all of your different things. So I know you from indoor. I don't even know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I feel old now, but what's some of your experience with that? Because I think you were saying how we could tie stuff in, and I think that's really cool. But if somebody didn't know what indoor was, what would you tell them about your experience there?
I feel like I live two different worlds, and they collide. And a very small sliver of my life is people understanding both. So when I was at North Texas, actually we made fun of music therapy because we thought it was holistic, voodoo-y, how does this make you feel? So I've been there, lived that life, where as a music major I was like, what's a music therapy? This is silly. And was in the competitive or drumline realm, and not even everyone as a music major understands something like indoor drumline. Luckily, most people understood drum corps at North Texas.
Sure.
But you get your vocalists and your string players that don't. So that was trying to explain that world to them. And then the people that did understand drum corps, explaining indoor drumline was an easier thing. You could be like, it's just like drum corps, just no brass. Nowadays, we also have WINs. So now we kind of... So, like, indoor drumline is like what people who want to play the same instrument for 6 months in the winter do. Like, essentially, that's what it is. You're playing a show, the same 7-minute show, and perfecting it for 6 months, and then you travel to Dayton, Ohio in April when it's still cold and miserable, and you compete against upwards of 30 world-class groups to be one of, 15 finalists, I think, is it now?
Yeah.
So it's as crazy as the people that want to do drum corps and play the same 9-minute show for 3 months every day. And then there's like the music therapy world, and I remember getting there, and they don't understand indoor drumline or like drum corps at all, because you're going to have mostly vocalists, I have found, and then you'll have some players who know what drum corps is, but they usually you're with vocalists or piano players, and they just don't know what it is, and they don't understand the world at all. And then, so like in indoor drumline, people didn't know what music therapy was. Most people didn't. And then in music therapy, they don't know, or they don't understand that weird, competitive, sort of focused on drumline things happens in the winter. So it's really interesting. What I found, actually, when I was in my internship for music therapy, which is required, you have to do a 1,200-hour clinical internship before you can study sports, which makes gonna mess with people's brains. You should probably do it a lot before you get to do it to get paid.
Of course.
Right. I would hope. So I actually had this moment when I was in my internship where I realized the parallels between my internship and drum corps. Because there's kind of like those moments in drum corps where like it's like the hardest thing you've ever done, and it's beating you down physically and emotionally, and the only people that really understand are the people you're marching next to. And then you have this like crazy camaraderie with them, and they're your brothers and sisters for life, and some of your best friends. And I found in my internship, I interned with an acute psych facility in a children's hospital, and they were both very difficult. Clearly, like acute psych, I was dealing with really intense cases of schizophrenia, bipolar, and other major affective disorders and things like that for 40 hours a week. And then the children's hospital, of course, surrounded by really, really sick kids all the time. So it was really, really mentally difficult, and it took a toll on me physically as well. And I had just kind of a moment where I was like, man, this is actually similar to drum corps, because I felt so supported by my supervisors, and they really were the only ones that could truly understand exactly what I was going through. And my co-interns, the same way, they were the only ones that were going through exactly what I was going through, and it was also super, super hard for them. And I felt like I couldn't explain it to anybody, because nobody really in music therapy had also done drum corps that I knew of, and no one in drum corps was going into music therapy, and so I couldn't like really explain that really intense similarity. But I don't know. I thought it was very similar. My internship was really intense, and I thought like transformative in every way, like super personally transformative, in almost the same way that, well, more so than drum corps. And I think those are the two most transformative times of my life. So, I don't know. They're very similar to me in the way that you approach it, like mentally and emotionally.
Well, and I think a lot of in some ways the practical effects, the sound, just, at base value, the sound can produce feelings and an environment, especially when it's so big and the scale is like that. And that seems totally reasonable to me. I never did drum corps, but that makes total sense. I do think, thinking of the drum corps and the indoor thing, and drum corps and indoor to me are sort of coming together, at least as far as a public face is concerned. You know, I think you were talking about even the advent of the WGI wins. WGI is a fantastic organization, I think, in a lot of different ways. You know, they have sponsors and ads for all sorts of different things. There was, I can't remember if it was last year or maybe if it started 2 years ago and it's a new thing, but the group called, I think they're the Free Players. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think that's I know what you're talking about,
yeah. And I'm going to certainly post a link to that that group of wonderful, wonderful folks, the special needs performing ensemble. I was blown away, and not. I mean, they were performers. They were out there. They put on a fantastic show, and I was so. I was happy not only about the show, but that a group like that, WGI, used their broad and mass, their audience and their appeal. It's an attractive thing, especially for young people who need to know what's happening. They need to understand. That was one of the coolest things, that they would use that and lift up those people who are doing such awesome work and giving that experience. When I marched indoor, that would never have occurred to me. I thought, well, nobody's worked hard enough for those folks to make up for the differences and in their abilities and stuff. But it was so cool, and I'm hoping it's only a matter of time before that even expands more. You know, I don't know if it needs another division, or if there's like a drum corps kind of setting, it would be cool. But that made me feel a lot better. And when I was doing a little bit of research for this, I saw that and definitely wanted to mention that and see what you thought about it.
Yeah, I cried when I saw that. I think one of the most important for individual we with developmental disabilities or delays is inclusion, and that the fact that we are doing so much better as a society to understand that. You know, research shows that they can catch up almost completely developmentally if they are surrounded by people that are typically developing. And it used to be that these people were put in asylums and kept away, which completely stunted their development, and as well as created a whole bunch of psychological issues. Can you imagine being stuck in an asylum for your whole life? You know, of course that's going to have psychological effects. And this, was going on all the way up to like the 80s. This was a problem, which is really, really insane to think about, because this was, a parents' generation all the way up until then. So the biggest thing to me is this inclusion, that people are like, yo, why are we, like you said, why aren't we finding people to help meet the needs so that they can achieve at this level? And I think the second thing that really got me was the reaction of people in the stadium, is that, like, I really do think that people are inherently good, and I think just seeing people just freak out and be so excited to share that moment with them, and to see them and to be their witness, to say, like, I see you, hear you, I see the work you did, I and I appreciate what you're doing, and you're standing in front of us and giving it your all, and that kind of shared humanity is something that I think we don't always give those individuals in our society. And to see, a stadium full of people that reacted so positively, especially knowing that they tend to be mostly teenagers in that audience, and they responded well. And we usually look down on adolescents for their terrible behavior, but everyone in there was so happy, and so welcoming, and I think that is really what got me, is that those individuals got to have that experience and have such a positive reaction. Oh, I love it so much. It was so good.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, like, I look forward to. I'm hoping, to see more. I'm hoping to see it grow. And I'm really glad you mentioned the young people, the audience that's aimed at. It's a perfect in between time. Before kids, before kids are old enough to really perform or care about competition or whatever. they're probably not learning much about that. And so that time when they're almost adults, 15, 16, 17, 18, if they're not shown the idea of inclusion and community and unity that something like that might show them, it's hard to get. If you turn 18 and you've never met anybody with different or special needs, you might grow up to be an adult that's like completely ignorant of that fact. And, it's not impossible to overcome that. I like to consider myself a compassionate and empathetic person, and I didn't know anybody personally that had any sort of special needs, and I didn't really, I wasn't nurtured that way in where I went to school or when I was performing, but, I think it's so important to show it to that group, not only that group, but by the time little brother, little sister, or when they start to get to be performing age, that will be the norm. Or when those folks that are performing on the floor get to be teachers, which a lot of them will be, statistically speaking, they're going to teach indoor at some point, or drum corps, or music, or English. That will be the norm, and it will be made the norm by starting that. And I mean, there was I welled up too, and there was people in the audience that had never seen anything like that before. It had never occurred to them, and it was so cool. And I was a little disenchanted with indoor, honestly, by that time. But then I saw that, and I was like, okay, they're doing something really special.
There's a lot of things I was thinking saying that. The inclusion piece, I think we're really doing a disservice to so many of our young people, because we aren't really, as much as we try to say we're inclusive, especially in Texas, I've noticed that the schools aren't super inclusive. Like when I was in high school, I actually did not see a single person with a disability. I'm pretty sure they're at a different school. Which kind of blows my mind now that I think about it. Because then when I was getting my therapy training, some of my clinical practicum work at a school where they integrate typically in developmentally delayed children. I literally never seen that. And so I don't know if it's a Texas thing. I really can't speak to other states, and I can't speak to the whole state of Texas. I can only really speak to Crum ISD, so in little tiny Crum, Texas. And I don't even know what they're doing now, but when I was there, it was not inclusive. And I think it sucks that we have to think of exposing adolescents or children to those. But it's true. We really do have to expose people to differences so that they can accept and understand. And we are really doing a disservice, because these people are in our lives and they are part of a population. And if we aren't exposed to them, we don't get to figure out how to be accepting, then I don't understand how we can really fault, I guess, the typical population for not understanding. So yeah, I am so excited WGI did that for sure. I think they have a really tough job of trying to stay relevant in a world that is pulling away from live music and pulling away from active music making. And they have to find a way to make money to the masses and be entertaining. There's a lot of things to be They have a hard job. They're trying to, they have a lot of stuff they have to try to figure out how to do. And they have to appeal to the young. So I just keep circling back to that. I just can't believe they did that. And I'm so impressed with them for sure.
Yeah, it's, and when I was, I taught in the public schools for a time, and I was very thankful for the opportunity. I got to work with, and honestly, I wasn't made aware of every aspect of that. But there's if a kid's got something going on of any kind, usually they let you know just enough. And I was like, okay. I feel very thankful because a lot of those kids I feel like weren't weren't included. They weren't achieving to a certain level right away, and instead of the extra little bit of time, the extra, 2 hours of planning for a given lesson, or the extra ensemble you might have to prepare or whatever. I feel like one of my goals was to make everybody in the program feel like they were not only a part, but as much of a part as anyone else. And that's hard to do. Some people are preparing college auditions and are playing different literature than your incoming freshman learning how to be a person. But that was always one of my goals, is to do that and give everyone started with the same chance. Everyone's as much as was possible from my end of things, and then from there we made it happen. And it's that was one thing I liked about being an educator in the public school system. I felt like I was able to give a little bit that I had to some of those folks. Not knowing the ins and outs of their struggles, but not part of the reason I didn't pry a lot about that, or I didn't delve into the exacts of it, is I didn't want to know. It didn't matter why. I wanted everyone to feel like they were as much of the studio as anybody else. And so there's some specific stuff obviously that had to be taken care of, but I don't feel like where I was at, folks with special needs or disabilities are treated correctly either. So I don't know. It's such a complicated thing, and I was only in the public school system for a short time, but I think I think there's still a lot of work to do in that regard.
It's so hard in the school systems, especially what I know in Texas. You're looking at schools that need to give money for achieving, and so you have the standardized testing issues stem from that, where they want to do well because they want money. So that, to me, that really shows the issue with integration, because if you integrate, you risk lowering grades and test scores, right? So if you're a school district that wants money, it makes it really hard to integrate. And then as far as music education goes, there's so much pressure in Texas to compete and to do well. Texas is such a high achieving state. We were ridiculous. And so I know some of the band directors there and friends, that pressure to do well is ridiculous. So a lot of times it didn't seem worth it to be planning to help integrate somebody in. I have 3 bands who go to state or whatever else. I don't have time to be doing this because I'm also planning for next marching band season, and I'm 5 extracurricular activities that I'm doing, and there's a lot of pressure on the band directors to achieve at such a high level, and so it's for them to also try to integrate. I totally understand the issue. There's a lot that has to do with the way the school district is things, obviously. Yeah, for sure. And then I also wrote down forget the part that you didn't necessarily want to know. I think that's one is back to when I was in the facility. We never looked at a charge when we walked in before, so oftentimes he was walk on, and we might have never seen any before, because they might be in for 5 days, might be in for 2 weeks, that's usually it. So oftentimes my supervisor would say, it doesn't really matter what they have, what their diagnosis is, what they're currently going through, whatever their issue is. What matters is what happens when you walk on the floor, what's happening in that moment, right there it is. What can you do in that moment to meet them? Because you might look at someone's chart and say, they have schizophrenia, I know exactly what they're going to act like, and in there, nothing like you thought, and you have any preconceived idea of this person is, or what they're going to be. So I have found definitely not knowing can help you be more mindful in the moment and be ready to to what someone needs, like, right then and there, without having a big deal. But also, my current job, I find the opposite to be true in that if I know what's happened, or diagnosed, sometimes understand the motivation of their behavior. Sometimes. But I would say most of the time it's better for me to step aside from knowing that I might know about this child and think about my sessions. It can really hinder what I'm doing because I'm not with them in this moment. It's exactly what they need in acting. So I think that can be of some importance. I'm sure it's just a way.
Yeah, well, it's like, and too, one of the things I'm realizing is a lot of this. I won't say it's exactly the same, but in my my interpersonal relationships with everyone, I realized, for example, like I don't mean for 1 second to try and equate someone with a disability to someone having a bad day, but as far as interpersonal communication goes, it's not your normal everyday interaction necessarily. You would approach those things differently, and I've learned that I don't need to know exactly what happened with the person who's having a bad day or is crying or any one of those things. I'm there. If I want to offer comfort, I offer comfort first. Sure, what happened? What's going on? But getting to work with some of those folks with some different things going on made me, I feel like, more open as a person, and just more that I had more to give. I had more and was able to be more thorough just as a person, as an empath, and as a member of society.
I think you said something. Someone. I don't want to equate someone having a disability with someone having a bad day. I think that's something that you can equate, though, because I think sometimes we forget these people are also human, and sometimes there is that trap that we fall into where we want to be developed and high functioning people in society. We want to feel sorry for them sometimes. They're going through so many hard things, but the more you're able to be around people that function differently, you're able to see, like, most of the time they don't need you to pity. They don't need you to feel sorry, because this is their reality. So when you're able to kind of step back and view people as such, you're having a good day, it can view in the moment, no matter what your emotional level is. It's the same because it's interpersonal relationships. That's why you're able to do that. You can expose yourself as you have different functioning levels, then you get better at being with individuals with different functioning levels. That's just how it is. You're going to be a better member of society because you're going to be able to recognize their strengths and your faults and weaknesses. It just makes you aware, more mindful. So I think you can relate it. I think you can view all interpersonal relationships the same.
Yeah.
You definitely can't.
Well, that's a good perspective, and some of it is, it's hard to put into words, I guess, since I don't really get to talk about it much, honestly. But that's good. It's good to have it's good to know, that. I don't know. It's just good to know what's going on and talk about it and feel it out. Okay, well, so there's other, let's see, I wanted to ask about, okay, so on top, I know I could probably talk all day about therapy and stuff, and we'll relate everything, surely, but, so what are some of your current projects? I know you're teaching some indoor.
Sure. So not super sure what you mean by projects. I'll just start going until like that. Yeah. So I have some stuff in music therapy that I'm working on. I'm currently starting my thesis for my master's. It's quite a lengthy process. I'm just starting to gather all my literature for my lit review, and I do want to publish, so it's like a way long process than just doing it a clinical. So I have to go through the IRB and all of that stuff. So I'm starting that, and I'm going to be doing my research. My current population is child witnesses of domestic violence. I don't know what my research question is yet. It hasn't been approved, so can't tell you that. Mm-hmm. But I'm that. I'm will finish my master's. I am also trying to get on the state task force in New Jersey to work with lawmakers to implement policy that would help music therapists in their state as well as our region, Atlantic region. I'm doing a lot of designing and the regional conference next week on my setting that I did. Yeah, I did it on patient perception, sort of patient perception treatment. And really how damaging labels can be and how to treat treatment and music therapy helps with that. So I'm doing all that. So for self-care, I really in a lot right now. My career, I'm really trying to just get in there and get dirty now. Get as much experience as I can. So for self-care, I tapped back into drumline. I took a break for a year for my internship, and I quit. So I jumped right back in. I use drumline, which is super fun. I love it so much. So that's really cool, and it's fun. And I'm teaching United Percussion. I'm a single tech player, and it's amazing. I actually marched United Percussion in 2013. So it kind of felt like coming home to be able to come back and work with them. So during the week, I do 40 hours of therapy a week where I'm trying to do stuff at my job. I'm trying to advocate in my community for music therapy for victims in the community. I'm trying to do stuff at the state level and the region level. And on the weekend, I do however many hours. What is it, indoor, 24 hours a week or something of rehearsal, something ridiculous.
Yeah, something.
So that's a little bit of my week. It's like 65 plus hours of really intense music-based stuff. But it's awesome. So I'm at the age where I do it. So that's what I'm doing.
No, for sure. That's good. And to me, as someone who's in I'm floating around rock bands right now, and that's sort of been my idea. The language behind projects is, I guess, like anything not necessarily tied to a genre or a group or whatever. That's cool, and I'm actually getting ready to start my master's in composition. Where I go, I'm not sure. I know, I'm so excited about that because and part of the reason is I want to. One of the things I like about writing music is the uniting people to play it, to perform it, certainly to listen to it, to critique it. Some of the coolest people I've met are people that were like, this is exactly what I didn't like about the piece that you wrote. And I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. I get to practice my humility. But yeah, so that's, by projects, just anything, because I know it can be easy to, and I don't mean I guess two different ways to look at the same thing. The good way would be giving your all to your occupation and your career path and that, or it could be some people might view it as being sort of I don't know, drowning in it or becoming overwhelmed. But it doesn't sound like you're. Sounds like you're super excited and happy and kind of like I am with it.
And then I have a supervisorship who I think is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. He's an incredible musician. I think he was in LA doing music producing for a while. That was his first degree. Incredible guitar player, like an amazing guitar player, incredible musician. And he found this music therapy, when he went back in the office of his career, and I always ask him, I don't understand why you're not presenting at conferences and why you haven't published research journals. And I feel like you could write a book on music therapy. He's amazing. He's incredible. But for him, he said the way for me to be able to do this job well means I can't do any of the rest of that stuff. I can't do music therapy what I want. I can't do any of that. And I remember really upset. We're wasting all this talent. When I step back, his the way he can be a therapist and help these people day by not doing it. When he walks out and he does stuff like he teaches guitar lessons. He's in bands and that's what he will say with his free time. And then I had a different supervisor that he's like on a bunch of executive boards in music therapy, and he's published stuff, and he's an internship director, and he does all this extra stuff, and it's easy for him because he wants to do it. And I think I fall on that side where I want to do it. It doesn't feel like am I taking work home from me, I guess? I don't know. So I guess it's not like, I met a lot of people like banders that they have to do work at home because that's the only way they can get it done, and it feels like awful and like they're doing work at home. But I mean, because I'm not doing stuff that is related to my actual agency at home, it doesn't feel like it. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. Everyone's different.
Oh, I think that's good. I think it takes all kinds of different approaches. It's the same, I equate a lot of what I do to composition, and a lot of what I see in other people. There's, I don't know. It's tricky to sort of go all in for one thing, but that it does. It sort of reminds me through my studies of composition. I've heard you can be a great composer. You don't need any sort of schooling or degree for it. Some people are just hi kid. Some people are just like really awesome composers and orchestrators and arrangers. They have these great ideas and they're able to just sort of flow and so you're going to school for a specific reason. Now I know being certified, being qualified to work as a therapist, that's a good reason because you need to do that. Sure. I've heard for a composition degree, if you're gonna get one, you kind of need to get three. So I'm looking at my master's program. I'm thinking, okay, cool. How is my master's program now going to help me get into doctoral school, and how am I going to end up teaching college? So what is after a master's, say in music therapy? What happens then? Where's your journey take you after that?
After we spend some time in our field, we're bachelor's level entry. Now, most other therapies are master's level entry, so you're a little behind. And I am. There are two different fields or views on this, and I am of the view that we master's level entry because every other therapy is for a reason. I firmly believe, and also it's really hard to cram all the information that people need in 4 years. The undergrads definitely feel it. A lot of them feel very uncomfortable. Just with the amount of work they have to do. You're a music major, which is very difficult, plus being a therapy major, so you're doing all the stuff like ensembles and lessons and all things, plus advanced for simple practice and stuff like that. It's really ridiculous. So right now, a lot of people are going back to get their master in it doesn't have to be music therapy, but a lot of them go back for whatever their field they might go back for master's in education, working in schools. Some of them go back for counseling. Some people might go back to something like business admin if they want to stay with their practice. So really right now, master's different things. For me, I thought about PhD in counseling for a second. And then when I moved to Jersey, I went to one of two schools that actually music therapy. There are only two in the country with real PhD in music therapy. One is Temple University, and so I'm right next to Temple. So I definitely want to go make a PhD. But a lot of people, when they get their doctorate, if they don't get it in music therapy, which most don't, they might get it again in special ed. Some people just general studies, and they research in music therapy. I think one of my professors got in research thing, like, I actually don't even know, some sort of research degree. So she literally is an expert on research, which is great if she is in the faculty of a university teaching master's students how to complete their thesis. So people kind of pick all these different avenues. And I definitely want to teach at a university level as well, so PhD is pretty much necessary for me. And Temple has their PhD is psych and medical music therapy, which are the two populations that I want to, so it's actually perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. You know, I hadn't even considered that. But yeah, I mean, I guess if once you're I'm thinking, finish a bachelor's degree, start working. That never really occurred to me before. That, you know, I guess when you finish a bachelor's, you're 22 or 23. Yikes, you know, that's that is wild. Well, How long? I don't know. How long do you think something like that it takes to change, like the master's level entry?
We're working on it. I honestly think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. It's something that at business meetings at the national convention or conference, I should not say convention, it is conference. When they have the business meetings, it is something that they're talking about every single year at conferences. It is probably the most hot topic for us right now. As a national organization. And from the people I've talked to that are on the committees that are talking about it, I know it's going to be soon. So what's going to happen for those that entered into the field as bachelor's levels, they will get grandfathered in because they're professionals. You know, they're not going to have to go and get a degree. They're not going to get their certification taken away from them. I'm not sure that we are moving towards it. I think what they are trying to figure out right now is what it's going to look like. Because right now you do the coursework, and all the practicums and everything, and then you do your internship, and then you sit for boards. So they're basically arguing about whether it's going to be bachelor's, internship, master's, or if it's like bachelor's, master's, internship, or bachelor's, master's, internship during your master's. You know, so they're just trying to figure out how they're going to split up the clinical hours, when the music training comes in, when the therapy training comes in, all that kind of boring stuff. So it's really crazy that is like the political argument in our field. That's what's going on.
Well, I guess if it's got political, it's got political things going on and people are arguing about it, it's one step closer to, you know, being mainstream and legitimize, air quotes, legitimize. Okay. Well,
I know. I think it's only right.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear, because like I said, I don't talk to many therapists. I went to, as a matter of fact, my vocal studio when I was at Sam was a lot of therapists, and I think a lot of them are working, but you know, they're so busy, and
I think a lot of those just happenstance. I'm at the age now, and we're at the age now where people are getting married, and it's so cute, and they're starting families. I've got a lot more, a lot more work to do. So it's good that I'm so grateful to be able to learn about it and talk about it, and hopefully, I love getting different people's perspective. Do you get a chance to interface with a lot of people from teaching, or not teaching rather, that are practicing in other parts of the country, or has it expanded enough? And what are your experiences there?
As you know, music therapy is one of the most amazing activities. Music therapists are so happy to share their experiences. I honestly have never met a music therapist that I was like, can I share you? I've never met anyone else. No. Everyone always wants to share what they're doing. So people that are doing it are very passionate about what they're doing. People discover that it's not for them. Some people it's not. Nice. Fine. Being a band director is no way for me. I would have worked out one year. So people kind of figure out. But the ones that are doing it are very passionate about it. So I have been able to interface at national conferences. That's really what that is for. You get a lot of your continuing education credit there. There's a lot of sessions going on. Professionals present what they're doing, or we have some incredible researchers like saying, and it's like a giant team. Like that's this neurologic music therapist presenting about music. That's what I'm feeling. I'm freaking out. So that's amazing, and a lot about. So I always try to think when I went to school with, in Ohio, I went to Ohio University, and kind of spread out a little bit. And so, the national conference, it's a chance to see our other peers from when we went to school, but also to meet new people. Like I usually gravitate towards trying to meet like Texan music therapists, Gulf Home State. And then conferences. So like the Mid-Atlantic Region Conference is next week. So that is it's New York, Connecticut, DC, probably Virginia, maybe not, I don't know. West Virginia for sure, Philadelphia, New Jersey. So it's like our region, and those ones are a lot more intimate. Like people know each other really well in the region. And then we interface a lot. People talk a lot about the research and advocacy and what we're doing. There's a lot of committees. I cannot even tell you like all the committees there are. Like there's a committee for like social justice, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
And there's a committee for there's definitely an advocacy committee. There's state task forces and things like that. So there's a lot of people that are working to do policy change and to keep spreading music therapy and to do what's best for our field, and even like trying to communicate well with other therapies, like speech language pathologists, trying to make sure that we are able to communicate well with them and that we know our scope of practice and that we don't invade on theirs, and that they know what ours is so they don't think we're trying to invade upon theirs. Things like that. It is really intense what happens at these conferences, So the long answer for that is that. The short answer is yes. Also, because we have, there's a Facebook group called Music Therapists Unite, and any music therapy student, intern, professional can be on it, and they have to go through this process where they prove that they're a music therapy student or intern or professional. But basically, they want every music therapist on this Facebook page so that people can post like ideas and meetings and groups, and I don't know, there's a lot of really cool stuff that goes on there. Like they'll post continuing education opportunities and workshops and webinars and YouTube videos and literally just cool stuff. So I think social media has made it, again, a lot easier to do all that. If you're wondering, there are I think almost there's over 6,000 of us, I think, board certified music therapists in the country. So sometimes it seems like you're like, man, there's 6,000 of them. But then if you think about how many people there are in the country, we're looking at however many billion. And then you try to think about all the people who have needs. Like you're thinking about everyone who's ever been in a hospital that had a hard time, that, you know, was there for longer than they needed to be because they suffered psycho healing, you know. And you think about everyone that has emotional behavioral disorder, everyone that has a developmental disability, every aging person, like the geriatric population, all of the people with Alzheimer's and dementia, refugees, immigrants, all these people who have needs. So at first you're like, 6,000 seems like a lot. And then when you think about the people with needs, you're like, 6,000 is not enough. Right.
Well, so that kind of makes me think, is there anything going on overseas that's comparable or happening maybe in tandem that you've heard about?
International Therapy Conference is in Japan this year, and I know there's a couple. I don't know everything about all the international music therapists, but I know Australia has a really incredible thing going on over there. They are spitting out so much amazing research. I think Melbourne, I don't know what university would be over there, but Melbourne is like really spitting out some incredible research. So they're doing a lot of good music therapy, and a lot of the Germany has some amazing music therapy, and I think a lot of the countries around there as well. I met a music therapist from, I felt really bad because she was in one of those really, really, really tiny European countries that was like maybe the size of New Jersey. I cannot remember where she was from. It started with an S. Oh, this is so bad. But this is going to haunt my dreams. But she was working in the prisons over there, and she was trained in Germany. So they have a lot of Norway, maybe. There's a Nordic journal of music therapy, and so it pretty much covers all of those countries. They're doing some incredible stuff. They're really heavy on like feminist theory and feminist perspectives over there, which is incredible. And Germany is really heavy on like psychodynamic theory. I think England or like Britain, they have a lot of good music therapy stuff happening. So basically, I feel like the industrialized countries have got it going on. And you're looking at some of the like South Asian countries, their students come over here because they don't have programs there. So they come and get certified over here, and they're trying to go back home and instate some of those practices and trying to start those programs over there. And I think also like South America, I don't know if they have anything, so they come up here a lot to get trained as well.
That's such.
Basically, I feel like a really ignorant American because I'm like, I don't super know of everything going on over there, but everyone's doing some really like amazing work.
Well, I mean, if you appear to be pretty focused on what you've got going on there, so that's reasonable. I certainly won't hold any judgment for that. And that's what YouTube and TED Talks are for.
Right, we need some good like music therapy TED Talks. I mean, there's been a lot of really good music in the brain ones, which I'm all about, because then that opens up people when I talk about music therapy. They're like, oh, I saw this TED Talk on how music affects the brain. I'm like, yes, we studied that. Like, we know that. We're very well aware of that. I'm very well aware of what part of your brain I'm affecting and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it opens people up to the conversation, but we definitely need some music therapy TED Talks where someone talks about, this is what we do, and this is why it's different than just sticking an iPod in the ear of someone with dementia and saying it's music therapy. We definitely need some good TED Talks. But we're getting there. We're very close. People are ready to listen.
That would be one, like, I would have to be there. I would kick myself if I wasn't there. I wasn't sure how. I wasn't sure the state of affairs because, for a time I was heavily considering pursuing music therapy even as an undergrad, because I started as a journalism major and ended up switching. My path sort of made itself evident, and it wasn't that I chose not to do therapy. I just chose composition was really what sort of spoke to me. And again, when I was looking at graduate programs, I was thinking, well, is it possible that, even though I've decided to do some other things for a degree, what are some things that like musicians can do, or just your lay person not even involved in music professionally? What can we do to help?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like that's kind of twofold. Like, there are things. Let me think about this. Let me do the bad first. A lot of times, people think that anyone can do music therapy, and that because they can maybe play an instrument well, that they can do music therapy. So we have a lot of issues where we will hear of someone doing music therapy in like a nursing home, and it's actually like a volunteer, which is amazing. We need volunteers because there's only 6,000 music therapists, so we need music volunteers. But we'll have them saying, I'm doing music therapy, but they're not trained in the therapy part. So when music creates emotions or memories or things that need to be processed, they're not able to do it. And so we actually spend a lot of time contacting these people and saying, what you're doing is music therapy. It's not music therapy. If you want music therapy, here's a board certified professional. But so like there's that aspect. Make sure first and foremost, if you're not a board certified music therapist, don't say what you're doing is music therapy. That being said, we can't stop anyone from using music therapeutically. That's different. Using music therapeutically is what most people do in everyday life. Like they listen to a song to calm themselves down. It's something that we kind of intrinsically know that music helps us, right? Which is why music therapy is a profession, because we know that it helps us. So like using music therapeutically is different, and to help in that way is different. So first and foremost, don't say that you're doing music therapy if you're not a board certified music therapist. So I think the biggest thing is just going to those like hill days in your capital, whatever state you're in, and advocating for the creative arts, advocating for music, for music not to get cut in schools, because I would not be here as a music therapist if I didn't have band in high school training me how to be a musician and opening me up to the arts, right? None of us would have been here if we didn't have piano lessons, right? If someone didn't tell us how it was. We have to have strong bonds with our music educators, because my friends that are music educators are training the people who will become music therapists, or they are training children so that they want to be in music therapy because they connect to music, right? Because someone might not need music therapy, but they can still benefit from what music can do for you, right? So I think if you are an educator or you have been affected by music, going to those hill days and to the Capitol and advocating for what you do and showing the benefits of it, and not letting it get cut, not letting the arts get cut. All of the arts, not everyone needs music therapy. Some people are better for art therapy or drama therapy or dance therapy, and those things wouldn't be there without their respective parts in school. So I think continuing to advocate for all of that and just standing up for those rights and not letting them get cut. I really respect the people that hold fundraisers to have dinky little marching bands in their tiny little schools, like those kind of things. Getting a music therapist to come talk at your school for your kids. Kids in band are like, I love music and I want to major in it, but I don't want to do performance or ed.
Right.
What can I do? So I think getting a music therapist in there to talk, or telling the school counselor that they should refer out to a music therapist, or so there's this like kind of educating yourself on what music therapy is, and just continuing to advocate for music and its amazing powers. I think those are the biggest things.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of what I thought. The practical things, making sure it still exists, making sure that.
Yeah, we have to.
Are there any national organizations, like say I was going to hold a benefit concert, and I'm thinking not so much hypothetically. I plan to use what platform I have, what exposure I have for some good that's like not for my personal benefit. Say I'm going to throw a benefit concert. Do I look specifically for local charities? Is there a national music therapy organization? What are some of the scales that I can look at?
Sure. So I think some of the things would be, we do have a national organization, the American Music Therapy Association. So that website is musictherapy.org.
Okay.
So you can look at that. I would always look at the task forces. They are the people that are going to help. But Texas, the task force there, the Texas State Task Force for Music Therapy, they are doing some work. They are passionate individuals trying to get music therapy to really explode in Texas. So they would be someone that you could talk to for sure. I know the next thing for you would be looking at places like HIRR, that hospital there, and then like Memorial Hermann, children's hospitals, they all have music therapy. So getting in touch with those music therapists, those are going to be the people who have the best connections with the other music therapists. So like that rehabilitation, things like that. So I think it would be looking at your state organization and then the national. But yeah, in your area, you have like hospitals and things like that where they always can use money for more instruments, and they would know of people who would need more than they would if they don't need anything. They also do, when I was at the Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, they pulled in a lot of like bands and stuff to perform for those kids, especially the ones that have to be there for a really, really long time. So a lot of times they do performances in the hospital for the kids. Or they do like sensory experiences where the kids, get to interact with the instruments. Or they had artists come in, they had sports teams come in, all this stuff. So there's ways to benefit people in need, even if you're not directly giving it to music therapy per se. But I think contacting the music therapist, they can really help figure out where that money can go.
All right. Let me see if I've touched on everything. Yeah. I say this a lot. I hope I say it enough that I'm extremely grateful for you talking to me and sharing your experiences, and there's my interest and interest is a good word. My dedication, I guess, goes a lot farther than an hour or so on a podcast goes. But this is a thing I think is accessible to a lot of people, or could be. It has a potential to be. As a show host, I like to think my ego's a little bit there for me, saying, there's some people that might listen, and I'm gonna really push it. And it's a thing that's extremely important to me, and the more I learn about it, the more important it is to me, and the more I realize that not only does it help me and the people that I'm around personally, it makes the world a better place. And that, at the end of the day, not a lot of composers will say that. I want more music for the world to enjoy, whether it's beautiful music, or whether it's sad music, or whether it's happy music, or whether it's music that nobody has any idea what's going on. because what I've learned is you never know what's going to help someone. You really don't. It could be. I wrote a piano piece that someone played, and I had forgotten. I completely forgot about it. I submitted it somewhere and came up to me. He's like, "That was the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard." And I was like, "Whoa, I forgot I wrote that." You know, it didn't mean anything to me necessarily. It was a fun project. I loved doing it. It wasn't anything personal or emotional, but that it proved to me. I was like, man, it can come from anywhere at any time, and it's so good. So thank you so much. Is there any other things you want to say before we wrap up our episode?
I feel like there's just so much. There's so much that we could talk about. I don't know, like how you were saying one of the things about you don't know what song's going to help people. I've been so surprised by what music really connects with people. There's a lot, you know, we could talk about music therapy and composition and music forever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thank you for listening, even touching the surface of what music therapy is. It's really important, and I love that you're trying to do some like interdisciplinary stuff here. It's super important.
Well, and keep in mind as time goes on, and the conversation gets a little bit more intense, you're always welcome. I have no problem with having, like you said, just talk forever. If you have,
Let's do it.
Yeah, if you have an hour and a half or 2 hours of time every week, I'm down. I know you have a million things to do, but no, but
I don't have kids though, right? Do it now.
Yeah, I have to feed my dog. That's it. Other than that, I'm Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get everything wrapped up. But again, thank you, Stephenie, for talking to me, and I'll be available for you if you ever need a soapbox.
Hey, perfect. Have a good night.
You too.